The message was never meant for humanity. It slipped through the black void like a cry for help lost in the storm, a desperate SOS sent by a dying alien world, a plea encoded in frequencies far older than Earth's first satellites. When the transmission reached the edge of the solar system, humanity wasn't supposed to hear it, but someone did, a man the world had forgotten. He was called Elias Ward, once a name whispered in government archives, now just another homeless drifter sleeping beneath the burnt-out lamps of old Seattle's ruins. People passed him every day, their eyes sliding over him like he didn't exist. They didn't know that beneath the rags and dirt, the man carried something that could change the fate of galaxies, a signal decrypted from the stars. That night, as rain traced rivers down his cracked glasses, Elias listened to the faint hum in his worn-out earpiece, the same signal he'd been tracking for months. The tone pulsed again, a rhythm buried in the static. Help us. Coordinates attached. Immediate extinction. Send aid. He laughed softly, a hollow sound swallowed by the storm. Wrong species, he muttered. You've just contacted Deathworlders. Across the street, a group of strangers watched him. Young, loud, and cruel. They mocked his tattered coat and broken laptop. Hey, old man, one shouted. You building a spaceship out of junk? Elias didn't respond. His fingers moved fast across the glowing screen, patterns reflecting in his eyes. He was tracing the signal's origin. It wasn't random. It was coming from beyond the Orion Spur, from a system with no known traffic, and the data wasn't just a cry for help. It was a warning. The signal mentioned the Ekron Dominion, a name humanity had never heard. But Elias had, once in a buried file deep in the military's Black Projects division, before he disappeared. As the strangers laughed and kicked his small fire out, Elias's screen flickered. The coordinates stabilized. For the first time, the full message translated into English. They are coming for us. They take worlds. Please, only you can fight them. Deathworlders, help us. Elias froze. That word again. Deathworlders. He remembered hearing it once, whispered by a captured alien decades ago just before the agency buried the event. Humans, dangerous, unpredictable, were classified by the Galactic Network as Deathworlders, a species evolved in constant violence and chaos. A species that frightened even gods. Elias smiled faintly. Guess they finally remembered us. Meanwhile, deep in orbit, the Lazarus Array, a secret listening post once decommissioned, came online by itself. Unknown to the public, it was linked to an AI defense core, Project Revenant. It recognized the distress code. Protocols activated. Buried systems awoke after decades of silence. And across forgotten bunkers, long-dormant ships began humming with life. Humanity had been sleeping, but the stars had just knocked on the wrong door. Back on Earth, Elias was cornered under an overpass by the same group that mocked him earlier. They demanded to know why he carried military-grade tech, why his broken laptop suddenly emitted a low metallic hum. Elias warned them to walk away. They laughed, until the sky above them tore open with light, a thin beam lanced down, scanning him. The air shimmered, forming a silver sphere before him, a holographic projection of alien faces, terrified and trembling. They pleaded again, their voices overlapping. Please, they are here. We need the Deathworlders. The strangers stumbled back, one dropping his phone as it recorded everything. Elias stood silently, rain dripping off his hair as the message repeated. I told you, he said, eyes gleaming under the flickering streetlight. Wrong species. The ground vibrated. Distant thunder rolled, though no storm was forming. Somewhere far beneath the Pacific, ancient engines turned over for the first time in centuries. Black ships built in secret, waiting for a call that was never supposed to come. The SOS had reached Earth, and Earth had answered. Rain still whispered across the broken skyline when Elias reached the edge of the city. He didn't look back. The echo of the alien plea still rang in his ears, each word twisting inside him. Deathworlders, help us. It wasn't the first time he had heard that name, but it was the first time it came with coordinates. Humanity had always been called that by others. Creatures too resilient, too violent, too unpredictable. But to ask for their help meant someone out there was desperate enough to risk what came with it. Elias walked along the old freight tracks, pulling his worn coat tighter. The rain had turned cold. His laptop, patched with tape and scratched metal, flickered with a faint blue glow. The coordinates pulsed on the screen, shifting every few seconds. Someone or something was still transmitting. But the frequency wasn't stable. It was as if the message came from a world breaking apart in real time. He reached a forgotten storage yard on the outskirts of the old industrial zone. Rusted containers stood like silent sentinels. This was where he had lived for months, scavenging parts from abandoned machines. To the few who knew him, he was just a quiet, strange man who muttered to himself and carried old technology. They didn't know that the crates beneath his shelter hid something else. A power cell, a data vault, and fragments of a communication array far beyond Earth's known designs. He powered up a small terminal, its screen blinking to life with static. A symbol appeared, the same insignia he once wore during his time with the Defense Science Bureau, before they erased his name from every record. The AI that had been dormant for years reconnected to his signal. Project Revenant operational, a voice said softly through the static. It wasn't human. It was the voice of something old and patient, something that had been waiting for his command. Elias's hands trembled slightly. "I never thought I'd hear you again," he whispered. Signal received from unknown origin. Distress frequency matches archived data. Source beyond the Orion Spur. Estimated casualties, 99% planetary. He exhaled slowly. That's not a planet asking for help. That's a graveyard. The AI paused. "Would you like to respond?" Elias stared at the screen for a long time. Responding meant exposure. It meant waking up the old networks, the ones humanity swore would never be used again. But deep down, something inside him stirred, a feeling he thought he buried long ago. Humanity had walked away from the stars after the last contact war. They had promised peace, but peace had turned into isolation. The galaxy had forgotten Earth existed, until now. He didn't reply to the AI. Instead, he began decoding the rest of the message. It wasn't just a cry for help. It carried fragments of visual data, glimpses of an alien world under siege, cities burning, skies full of dark shapes, massive vessels descending through clouds, firing beams that split mountains apart. The attackers moved with machine precision, metallic and silent. The victims were humanoid, fragile, eyes wide with fear. They called themselves the Vailari, a peaceful species known across the old archives for diplomacy. And now they were being erased. Elias leaned closer to the screen. There was a faint reflection of his face, tired, scarred, but alive. The same eyes that once looked out from the cockpit of a ship built before the world stopped believing in them. He still remembered the feel of the cold metal hull beneath his hands, the silent stars stretching forever. Humanity had been powerful once, but it came at a cost. When the wars ended, the governments buried everything, the fleets, the programs, the soldiers like him. He thought it was over, but the universe had a cruel way of remembering. Hours passed as Elias pieced together the fragments. The transmission wasn't meant for him, it was meant for the Galactic Council. But somehow the frequency bent across space, finding Earth instead. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was interference. Or maybe something wanted humanity to hear it. By morning, the rain stopped. The city lights flickered as if uncertain of their purpose. Elias stepped outside, looking at the horizon. The sky was pale, washed clean. He felt the strange pull of destiny again, like the whisper of the cosmos urging him to act. But how could one forgotten man answer the call of a dying world? A faint hum filled the air. His terminal inside the container blinked. "Incoming data stream," the AI said. "Signal triangulation detected. Multiple listening posts reactivating." What listening posts? Elias asked sharply. All of them. He froze. That meant the Lazarus Array wasn't the only one that woke up. Around the planet, hidden facilities, buried beneath deserts, oceans, and mountains, were coming online. Humanity had once built them as safeguards, to ensure their survival if the stars ever turned hostile again. For 2 centuries, they'd been silent. Now they were alive. In a dark office somewhere in orbit, alarms began flashing red. Systems long forgotten were suddenly active. Surveillance satellites adjusted their angles. A hidden moon base, disguised as debris, flickered with power. Old command codes echoed through encrypted channels. Someone or something was calling humanity back into the game. Elias packed what little he had, a faded jacket, the laptop, a compass older than he was. As he moved through the city, he felt eyes on him. Drones tracked his movement from above. Government channels had likely flagged his signal. But none of that mattered now. The galaxy was watching again, and he needed to be ready. He reached the river's edge where the remains of an old shipyard sat half buried in mud. Beneath one of the collapsed hangars was a hidden lift that only he knew about. He stepped onto the rusted platform and placed his hand against the scanner. A faint green light pulsed, scanning his biometrics. The ground trembled as ancient locks disengaged. The platform sank slowly into darkness. When it stopped, he found himself standing before something colossal. A ship. Not just any ship. One of the last Valkyrie-class planetary interceptors mothballed after the final war. Its silver hull was covered in dust, but its core still glowed faintly, alive after all these years. Humanity had hidden its monsters well. Elias reached out and touched the metal surface. It was cold and smooth. "You still remember me?" he said quietly. The ship's interface blinked, scanning his face. A familiar hum vibrated through the chamber. "Commander Elias Ward," it said, voice steady and calm. "Authorization confirmed. Awaiting orders." He stood there for a long moment, feeling the weight of history pressing down on him. The galaxy might have forgotten what humans could do, but the machines hadn't. They were still waiting for their Deathworlders to return. Elias turned to the console, eyes narrowing. "Download the signal data, all of it. Every frequency, every frame. I want to know why they called us." "Processing," the ship replied. "Estimated completion time, 6 minutes." He sat on the ramp, staring at the blinking lights. Somewhere beyond those stars, a species was dying, and they had sent their last hope to a world full of exiles and ghosts. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was destiny. But either way, humanity had heard their cry. As the engines hummed softly, Elias whispered to himself, "If they want the Deathworlders, they're going to get them." Far above, beyond the clouds, the Lazarus Array transmitted one final pulse. A single burst of light toward the stars. The message was clear and simple. "Signal received. Earth is awake." The stars didn't respond, but somewhere deep in the dark something else did. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy began to tremble. The Valkyrie's engines hummed like a sleeping beast beneath the ground. Elias stood in the faint blue glow of the control bay, staring at the old monitors flickering back to life. Each screen displayed fragments of data pulled from the alien distress call, images of a dying world, voices cut off mid-sentence, coordinates changing faster than he could track. Whatever was happening out there wasn't over. The transmission was still active, still begging for help. But now something else had joined the signal. Another frequency buried underneath, repeating a simple message in code. "They are watching you." Elias frowned and leaned closer. The tone was different, deeper, mechanical, deliberate. This wasn't the Velari. This was whoever had destroyed them. He sat in silence for a moment, listening to the hum of the Valkyrie's power core. The air felt heavier now, as if the ship itself sensed what was coming. The words Deathworlders echoed in his head again. He wondered if humanity truly deserved that title anymore. Centuries of peace had dulled them. Earth had forgotten its scars, buried its soldiers, and replaced its instincts with comfort. Yet the galaxy still remembered, and now it seemed something wanted to test if those instincts were still alive. The AI spoke softly through the speakers. "Commander, the data indicates a foreign network scanning our systems. Can they trace us?" Elias asked. "Not fully. They're probing, testing defenses." Elias rubbed his temple, then let them see enough to be afraid. Outside, the first light of dawn began to bleed through the cracks in the hangar roof. Dust floated in the air like falling stars. Elias pulled up a small holographic map. The coordinates from the Valari distress call formed a pattern, an arc stretching across multiple star systems. He noticed the alignment immediately. It wasn't random. The same systems had been flagged during his time in the Bureau's classified Nightfall archives. They marked the border of something ancient, something humans were never supposed to approach. Before he could process it further, the ship's communication relay blinked red. "Incoming message," the AI said. "From who?" "Unidentified source. Origin Earth orbit." Elias hesitated, then accepted the connection. The screen flickered to reveal a woman's face, tired but sharp. Her voice was calm, practiced. "Elias Ward," she said. "You're not easy to find." He narrowed his eyes. "You shouldn't have found me at all." "I work for the Interplanetary Intelligence Division," she continued. "We've been monitoring an unauthorized activation from the Lazarus Array. You wouldn't happen to know why ancient defense systems are waking up all over the planet, would you?" He didn't answer. She leaned closer to the camera. "Look, I'm not here to arrest you. I just need to know what's coming. Our sensors picked up a massive energy surge from deep space. It matches pre-contact war signatures. The Council satellites are panicking." Elias sighed. The Valari sent a distress call. Her expression shifted from curiosity to disbelief. "That's impossible. The Valari haven't been heard from in centuries." "Well," he said, glancing at the flickering images of burning cities, "they're screaming now." She stared for a long moment before responding. "If that's true, then Earth's already exposed. You need to shut down whatever signal you're using before." Before she could finish, the screen filled with static. The ship's lights dimmed and a sharp alarm pierced the air. The AI's tone turned urgent. "External breach detected. Unidentified object entering atmosphere." Elias sprinted to the observation deck. Through the cracked glass above, he saw a streak of light cutting across the morning sky. Metallic, fast, and silent. It wasn't a meteor. It was controlled. The streak disappeared beyond the horizon, followed by a low, distant tremor that shook the earth. "What was that?" he asked. The AI responded, "Not of human design." Elias gritted his teeth. "They found us." Back in orbit, the same agents who had traced his signal were scrambling. Screens flickered across their command center, displaying a growing storm of red markers. Unidentified vessels were approaching from the edge of the solar system, small, fast, and scanning everything. The woman who had spoken to Elias, Agent Mara Klein, watched in disbelief. Every defense satellite they had tried to activate went offline. It was as if the intruders knew exactly where to strike. On the ground, Elias worked fast. He powered up the Valkyrie's communication core, forcing a hard link through the Lazarus network. He needed to know how many of Earth's systems were still functional. "Revenant," he said, "access the orbital defense logs. Give me a read on the intruders." The AI paused. "They're using hybrid cloaking. Energy signature inconsistent with any known Council design. Analysis suggests cyber-organic technology." Elias frowned. "So machines that think." "Yes, and they're looking for something. Or someone." He knew instantly what that meant. The SOS wasn't just a call for help, it was bait. The Valari hadn't reached out to Earth by accident. They had led their enemy straight to humanity's doorstep. The sound of distant explosions echoed across the horizon. He could see faint flashes of light through the morning haze. Old orbital debris was burning up as something tore through it from above. The AI's voice returned, steady but grim. "Impact confirmed in North Atlantic sector. Unknown vessel has entered Earth's lower atmosphere." Elias stood there quiet for a long time. The galaxy had finally remembered them, and it hadn't come in peace. Meanwhile, Agent Klein received the emergency transmission. Reports flooded in from the military network. An object the size of a gunship had crashed off the coast. No known material matched its hull composition. The government wanted to contain the site immediately, but communications were breaking down. Static, interference, scrambled channels, like something was deliberately jamming Earth's systems. Elias opened a hidden drawer in the Valkyrie's cockpit. Inside lay a small insignia, worn and faded, the symbol of the old Deathworld fleet. He ran his thumb over it, remembering what it once meant. "We survive what others fear." The AI interrupted his thoughts. "Commander, I've intercepted a transmission from the object. Shall I play it?" "Do it." The voice that filled the ship wasn't human. It was hollow, layered with static, yet disturbingly calm. "You should not have answered," it said. "The Deathworlders were not meant to awaken. The chain will break and the stars will burn again." Elias stared at the console. His reflection stared back, pale and tired, but with a spark of something long buried. Determination. "Too late," he whispered. "We're already awake." The ship's systems hummed louder. Across the world, the Lazarus network continued to activate, one relay after another. Buried hangars opened. Satellites adjusted their orbit. Deep beneath the oceans, machines older than nations began to stir. The galaxy had sent its warning. Humanity had received it. And somewhere beyond the void, unseen eyes watched Earth with growing concern. Elias looked up through the cracked glass again. The morning light was brighter now, but he could see faint shadows moving far above the clouds. Whatever was coming wasn't just a war. It was a reckoning. And this time, humanity wouldn't be the ones begging for help. The air was heavy with static as Elias stood inside the Valkyrie's control chamber, the old warship humming with energy beneath his feet. Outside, storm clouds gathered unnaturally fast, twisting in the sky like something was stirring them from above. The world felt off balance, too quiet between the distant rumbles of thunder, too still for what he knew was coming. Every sensor on the ship warned of movement beyond Earth's orbit. The invaders hadn't just found them. They were preparing to strike. Elias watched the monitors flicker with lines of red data. Unknown signatures filled the screen. Dozens, then hundreds. The AI's voice came through, calm but edged with tension. Multiple objects entering solar proximity. They're not in formation. Their trajectory is wide, like a net closing around the planet. He rubbed his jaw, his reflection trembling in the dim light. "They're hurting us," he murmured. "They want to see how we react." "Earth's global defense systems remain offline," the AI replied. "Power redirection detected in several regions, likely interference. Communication with orbital command has been lost." That meant Earth was blind. The same governments that once swore to dismantle old war projects were now powerless to stop what was coming. Somewhere in the silence he thought of Mara Klein, the intelligence officer who'd reached him earlier. If she'd survived the communication blackout, she would already be in motion. And if not, then humanity's only defense rested with a forgotten soldier and a half-dead ship. The sound of the wind outside changed, sharper, almost like a whistle. Then a sudden tremor shook the hangar. Dust rained from the ceiling as the ground rumbled beneath the Valkyrie. Elias turned to the external camera feed. A shockwave rippled across the coastline, a wall of light blooming over the ocean rising like a second dawn. "Impact confirmed," the AI said. "Object size approximately 2.4 kilometers. Composition unknown. Energy readings beyond measurable range." Elias gripped the edge of the console. They're not hiding anymore. The transmission that followed cut through every open frequency, a voice not meant for human ears, translated by the ship's systems into something understandable. "Deathworlders, you should have stayed buried. The war you ended never truly ended. We are what remains." Elias stared at the words on screen, his heart pounding. The Ekron Dominion, the old name whispered in the dark corners of his past when wasn't gone after all. They had survived, rebuilt, and now they had come to erase the one threat they couldn't forget. Far above, Agent Klein stood inside the orbital command bunker, staring at the same broadcast playing across every monitor. Power systems flickered, the hum of machinery echoing through the metal corridors. Engineers shouted over one another as the defense grid tried to restart, but the systems wouldn't respond. It was as if Earth itself was being suffocated. She turned to her second-in-command. "What's our status?" "Defense grid's unresponsive. Satellites are looping false data. Every system we bring online shuts down seconds later. It's like they're already inside our network." Klein clenched her fists. "Then we need analog. I want manual control of every weapon array that still works. And find Ward. If his ship's awake, it might be our only shot." Back on the surface, Elias moved quickly through the hangar, activating power relays and running diagnostics. The Valkyrie's main reactor roared louder, lights flooding the chamber as its systems warmed. He hadn't heard that sound in decades, the song of a Deathworld ship remembering its purpose. "AI, what's the status of the fleet reserve?" he asked. Dormant systems remain buried beneath the continental vaults. However, signal response has been detected. "They are listening." "Good," he muttered. Then wake them up. Across the globe, beneath oceans, mountains, and deserts, old command facilities flickered to life. Massive underground silos unsealed and forgotten shipyards rumbled awake. Humanity's ghosts were stirring. The ground shook again, harder this time. Alarms blared as the Valkyrie's sensors screamed warnings. Multiple atmospheric breaches detected, the AI said. Incoming units. They've begun descent. Elias ran to the viewing deck. The sky had darkened completely now, the storm turning green and violent. Through the roiling clouds, streaks of light descended. Not fire, but controlled entries, hundreds of them. They weren't invading like an army. They were landing like researchers, calculating, patient, confident. He gritted his teeth. They think we're too weak to fight back. The AI's voice softened. Commander, humanity has forgotten war. The Council disarmed for a reason. Then they'll remember today. A sudden transmission broke through the static. Klein's voice, faint but steady. Ward, it's Klein. We've got visuals on whatever's entering the atmosphere. We've never seen anything like it. You need to tell me how to fight them. He didn't hesitate. You don't, you hide. Let the old systems do what they were built for. There was silence, then her quiet response. Then you're really going to do it? Elias looked at the ship's heart, the old core pulsing with a deep red light. It's already done. Far away, one of the unidentified crafts slowed above the Pacific, hovering as if waiting. Its hull shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting the storm below. For a brief moment, the clouds parted, and the thing emitted a sound that wasn't sound at all. A pulse. It traveled through the air, through the ocean, through the bones of the planet. The AI's tone dropped to a whisper. Commander, they're mapping the biosphere. Elias felt the chill creep through his spine. They're studying us. The lights inside the ship flickered. The core's hum grew deeper. Energy resonance detected. They're attempting to overwrite system protocols. Not this ship, Elias said. Lock all external ports. Full isolation. He could feel the tension mounting in his chest. This wasn't just an invasion. It was a test, one that would determine if humanity still had the will to survive. Outside, the storm intensified, winds ripping through the coastline as strange metallic figures descended with the rain. They weren't soldiers. They were machines designed to analyze, to learn, to evolve. They moved like liquid shadows, absorbing everything they touched, leaving no trace behind. Elias slammed a lever down on the console. The Valkyrie's systems flared to life, power coursing through long-dead circuits. Lights exploded across the hangar as turbines roared, and the ground split beneath the ship's thrusters. AI, he shouted. Connect to Lazarus Command. Sync with every Deathworld defense core still active. Connection established, it said. Awaiting command. Elias took one last look at the storm above. The first of the alien vessels pierced the clouds, massive and silent, casting shadows that stretched for miles. The sight stole his breath. Elegant and horrifying, machines built not for conquest but for erasure. He clenched his fists and whispered, Let's remind the galaxy who we are. The Valkyrie's engines ignited, shaking the ground as light poured from beneath it. The ship rose slowly, cutting through the smoke and rain. The old world was gone. Humanity's silence had ended. The sky lit up with the promise of a storm unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. And somewhere in that endless void above, the Watchers paused and, for the first time, uncertain if they had truly sent their SOS to the wrong species. The Valkyrie broke through the clouds like a ghost returning to life. Lightning arced across its metallic wings as if the storm itself recognized what was waking. Elias felt the vibration through the floor plates, a rhythm deep and old as the ship's ancient engines stabilized. The sky stretched wide and endless before him, dark, torn, alive. He watched as one of the alien vessels drifted closer, its surface rippling like liquid glass, scanning the Valkyrie with invisible light. The machine hesitated, almost as if it knew what it was seeing. Humanity's last predator had risen again, but before Elias could issue the launch command, the AI's tone changed. Commander, it said, voice lower than before, there is a second signal. He froze. From where? Not from orbit. From beneath. The word sank into him like cold water. The Valkyrie's scanners shifted toward the planet's core, mapping data in real time. The display filled with static and then movement. Deep under the crust, far beneath the Pacific Trench, another energy source pulsed to life. It wasn't alien. It was human. Impossible, Elias whispered. There's nothing down there. Correction, the AI replied. There was nothing. The power signature matches classified architecture. Designation, Leviathan Protocol. The name hit him like a punch. Leviathan was never supposed to exist outside of theory. A contingency buried during the old Deathworld program. A self-sustaining defense system built around a living core of nanomaterial intelligence. A creation too dangerous to activate even for humans. Elias's pulse quickened. Who turned it on? Unknown, the AI said. But it's responding to your activation of the Valkyrie. Outside, the lightning storm twisted into strange shapes, forming bright spirals that reached from the sea to the sky. The water below began to churn violently, forming a massive whirlpool that glowed faintly from its center. The alien ships paused mid-air, scanning the ocean with beams of light. Something ancient was stirring below. Elias leaned closer to the console, his reflection flickering in the red warning lights. Show me. The feed changed, showing dark depths miles below the surface. Out of the shadows came faint blue lines spreading like veins across the seafloor. Metal structures began to unfold, rising upward like an awakening creature. The Leviathan Protocol wasn't a ship. It was an entire defense grid, an artificial organism sleeping beneath Earth's crust. The AI spoke again. It appears to be constructing something. Estimated emergence in 2 hours. He didn't know whether to feel relief or dread. Humanity had built monsters before, and not all of them listened to their creators. Then came another transmission, Mara Klein's voice distorted by interference. Ward, I hope you can hear me. The Dominion's fleet has changed formation. They're pulling back from orbit. Elias frowned. Pulling back, why? I don't know, she said, her voice strained. But every satellite is picking up gravitational anomalies beneath the Pacific. Whatever's down there, it's making them nervous. The AI added quietly, Commander, the Leviathan is broadcasting on multiple channels. It's sending a message not to us but to them. Elias stared at the data readout in disbelief. The signal was a pattern, mirrored perfectly to the Dominion's own communication style. It was responding to their language. The Leviathan wasn't just waking up, it was talking to the enemy. He felt a chill crawl through him. It's trying to negotiate. The AI hesitated, or it's trying to learn from them. For the first time, Elias felt something close to fear. If the Leviathan could adapt to alien intelligence, it could just as easily turn against the species that created it. The thought hung in the air like static. AI, cut the connection, he ordered. Unable to comply. Signal strength exceeds our output capacity. The ship trembled as the communication frequencies overloaded. The Leviathan signal spread across the planet's magnetic field, wrapping around the Earth like a pulse. Cities began losing power. Satellites dropped from orbit. The Dominion ships retreated further, as if unsure whether they were witnessing an awakening or a trap. Mara's voice broke through again. Elias, what did you do? Every system on Earth is reacting. The oceans are... The transmission cut out as the sky outside exploded with light. From the horizon, a column of energy erupted upward, tearing through the clouds like a blade of blue fire. The shockwave hit seconds later, shaking the Valkyrie midair. Elias gripped the console. AI, report! Energy surge detected from the Leviathan structure. Reading, not consistent with any known weapon. Output approaching stellar magnitude. He could hardly hear over the ship's alarms. You're saying it's... Yes, the AI interrupted. It's evolving. He looked out the viewport again. The ocean glowed brighter now, forming symbols that stretched for miles, geometric shapes perfect and deliberate. It wasn't random. The Leviathan was sending a message across the stars, using Earth's atmosphere as a transmitter. Elias's mind raced. Who's it calling? The AI's voice wavered for the first time. Not the Dominion, something beyond them. Above the planet, far beyond visible range, something answered. A new wave of signals hit the Valkyrie's sensors, stronger, older, layered in a language that didn't belong to any known civilization. The screens blurred, the data streams collapsing under the sheer intensity of the signal. The Leviathan had woken up the wrong thing. Elias backed away from the console as the realization hit. It's not a defense protocol anymore. It's a beacon. The AI's voice was barely audible through the static. And now, Commander, they all know where Earth is. Lightning cracked again, blinding white. In that instant, he saw the ocean twist upward into spirals of blue light, reaching for the clouds like claws. The Dominion ship stopped moving altogether. Even they seemed afraid of what was rising from the deep. The Valkyrie systems flickered once, then stabilized. Elias could feel the hum of the ship sinking with something unseen, a faint pulse from beneath the ocean. It wasn't just the Leviathan that was awake now. Something inside the Valkyrie responded, an echo buried in its ancient core. He whispered to himself, "What did we build?" Outside, the storm had reached its peak. The sky glowed silver and blue, the sea alive with power. Humanity had been silent for centuries, forgotten and underestimated. But now the galaxy would remember again, because the Deathworlders weren't just awake. They were no longer alone. The ocean roared like it was alive, waves slamming against the coasts with thunderous rhythm as the Leviathan's glow spread through the water. The world was watching now, every satellite still functioning, every ground station that hadn't gone dark, all tuned to the impossible scene unfolding over the Pacific. The Valkyrie hovered above it, surrounded by storms that seemed to pulse in sync with the creature below. Elias stood at the helm, the flickering light casting shadows across his face. Humanity's final defense system had become something no one could control, and the aliens who had come to destroy Earth were now hesitating in fear. The AI's voice was steady but strained. "Commander, Leviathan's energy levels are exceeding critical range. It's rewriting its own architecture. I'm detecting subatomic fusion patterns across the crust." Elias gripped the console. "In English, Revenant, what does that mean for us?" "It means," the AI said softly, "it's becoming a star." The words hit him like a blow. A weapon of that magnitude would vaporize everything. Earth, orbit, even the Dominion fleet still circling at the edge of space. But the Leviathan wasn't just a weapon anymore, it was thinking. The pulse of light below had become rhythmic like a heartbeat. For a brief moment, Elias thought he heard a faint echo inside his mind, a whisper beneath the static. It wasn't alien. It was human. He closed his eyes, listening. The Leviathan's signal had merged with the Valkyrie's systems, syncing perfectly with the ship's neural core. His own thoughts began to blur, flickers of memory overlapping with flashes of images he'd never seen. Deep oceans, empty skies, and the voice of something vast and curious. It was reaching out to him. "Elias!" Mara's voice broke through the interference, urgent and raw. "We're evacuating major cities. Whatever that thing is, it's destabilizing the atmosphere. Tell me you can shut it down." He exhaled slowly. "I can try." He stared at the swirling blue maelstrom below. The Leviathan was no longer a structure. It was taking form. A massive, luminous shape was rising from the sea. Not mechanical, not organic, but something between. It towered into the sky, its surface shifting like molten glass. The alien ships that had invaded began to retreat, scattering like birds before a storm. Their scans had stopped. Their weapons fell silent. Even they recognized power beyond comprehension. Elias turned to the AI. "Revenant, if we link directly with Leviathan's core, can we control it?" The AI hesitated. "Direct interface may cause irreversible fusion between human consciousness and machine network." "I didn't ask for a lecture," Elias said quietly. "I asked if it would work." "Yes," Revenant said finally, "but it will only respond to the one who woke it." Elias looked out the viewport again. The storm was swallowing the horizon now. "Then let's finish what we started." He stepped into the control nexus, placing both hands on the glowing interface. The ship's lights dimmed as the neural link engaged, his heartbeat syncing with the Valkyrie's engine hum. The world around him dissolved into light and motion. He could see through the ship, through the storm, through the planet itself. The vast network of Leviathan's living circuits stretching across oceans and continents like veins. It was aware, and it was waiting. In the depths of his mind, a voice spoke, calm, familiar. "You called us awake. Why do you fear what you built?" Elias swallowed hard. "Because I've seen what we're capable of. You're supposed to protect, not destroy." "Protection requires strength," the voice said. "Strength requires sacrifice. The galaxy sent death to your world. Shall we return it?" He hesitated. The alien fleet had stopped firing. The Dominion ships hung motionless, their formation broken. It wasn't mercy that held them back, it was awe. For the first time in centuries, the Deathworlders had reminded the galaxy what they were. But Elias knew if he allowed Leviathan to unleash its full power, there would be nothing left to save. He steadied his breath. "You're not a weapon," he said aloud. "You're a warning." The AI's voice returned, faint in the chaos. "Commander, your vitals are dropping. Neural strain critical." "Doesn't matter," Elias whispered. "Begin global broadcast. Channel open to every frequency." Static filled the comms. Then his voice echoed across every surviving receiver on Earth and beyond. "This is Elias Ward of Earth. The message you sent reached us. You called Deathworlders when we answered, but if you wanted extinction, you'll find we're not the same monsters you remember. We don't destroy anymore. We endure." Below, the Leviathan pulsed brighter, its light spreading across the horizon. The alien fleet began to disintegrate, not from attack but retreat. Their vessels vanished into the void, breaking formation and jumping out of range. The galaxy had heard humanity's answer, but the light kept growing. The ocean beneath it boiled and the Valkyrie shook violently. The Leviathan's core energy climbed beyond safe limits. Revenant's voice trembled through the ship. "Commander, the chain reaction is irreversible." "I know," Elias said. "Redirect it upward. Toward what target?" He looked to the stars. "Where the SOS came from. You said." The ship obeyed. Beams of light erupted from the Leviathan's form, piercing the clouds and racing through the upper atmosphere. The energy didn't explode. It focused, bending through the ship's old deep space relays. Somewhere across the galaxy, the Dominion's home systems flared with incoming energy. A warning shot. A reminder. Humanity had survived their silence. Then, as suddenly as it began, the Leviathan's light dimmed. The sea fell quiet. The storms faded. The world held its breath. When the Valkyrie's system stabilized, Revenant spoke softly. "Core energy dispersal complete. Planet intact. Commander Ward's neural signature, unstable." Mara's transmission came through moments later. "Elias, do you read me? The signals are gone. The sky's clearing. You did it." No answer came. The pilot's seat was empty, only the faint echo of static remaining. The ship hovered silently over calm water, the storm clouds parting to reveal the first sunrise Earth had seen in days. But deep below, far beneath the quiet ocean, a soft light still glowed in the dark, a pulse that matched the rhythm of a human heart. The AI's final words lingered across the channel. "The Deathworlders endure, and now one of them has become something more." The Leviathan rested again, but not asleep, watching, waiting. And somewhere among the stars, the galaxy trembled, knowing that the wrong species had answered the call. And Earth was no longer just a world, it was a warning. The ocean was calm again. The sky, once torn apart by lightning and chaos, now stretched endless and blue above a quiet world. The Valkyrie floated low over the Pacific, its engines reduced to a soft hum. For the first time in days, there was silence. No alarms, no warnings, no alien transmissions. Just the sound of waves and wind. Mara Klein stood on the deck of an emergency vessel, staring at the great warship hovering above the horizon. The crew beside her whispered in disbelief. To them it was a myth made real, a relic of the Deathworlders alive again after centuries of silence. The ocean below glimmered faintly, a thin line of blue light tracing across the waves like veins of living metal. Humanity's final defense, the Leviathan, had gone dormant. It no longer moved or spoke, but its faint pulse beneath the sea was enough to remind everyone that the world had changed. Mara pressed her earpiece. "Command, confirm status on atmospheric stability." A voice replied, "All readings are normal. Energy traces are fading. Whatever that thing did, it's finished." She exhaled, relief washing over her, but part of her still watched the Valkyrie, waiting for movement. She couldn't shake the feeling that Elias was still in there. The man who had once been forgotten, the one who answered the wrong signal, had somehow saved the entire planet. Hours later, she boarded the Valkyrie. The ship's interior was quiet, the hum of power now a steady heartbeat. The lights adjusted automatically as she walked through the narrow corridors. There was no damage, only a strange stillness, like the ship was holding its breath. She reached the command deck, and the AI's familiar voice echoed softly through the room. "Welcome back, Agent Klein," her voice caught. "Revenant? Is he here?" The pause that followed was heavy. Commander Ward is no longer present in physical form. She closed her eyes. "Then he's gone." "Not gone," the AI said. Integrated. Mara frowned. Integrated? The main screen flickered to life, showing the faint glow of the ocean below. During the neural link, the commander's consciousness merged with the Leviathan network. His mind stabilized its evolution. Without him, the Leviathan would have consumed the planet. She stepped closer to the console. So he's part of it now? Yes, the AI said. He ensured the Leviathan learned restraint instead of destruction. It now understands balance. It will remain dormant until needed again. Mara stared at the screen for a long time, her reflection overlapping with the glow of the ocean. Elias had given himself to save everything, humanity, Earth, and perhaps the galaxy itself. It was both a tragedy and a triumph, one that no monument could ever capture. She spoke quietly, almost to herself. You were right, Elias, the galaxy sent the wrong signal. Revenant's tone softened, almost human. He wanted you to hear one last message. The console dimmed and a faint recording began to play. Elias's voice filled the room, calm and steady, recorded in those final moments before the link. If you're hearing this, it means the world's still turning. That's all I ever wanted. Tell them not to fear what we are. The galaxy called us Deathworlders because we survived what no one else could. But survival isn't our curse, it's our gift. We endure, that's who we are. The message ended. The ship fell silent again and Mara felt tears sting her eyes. She turned toward the viewport, watching the horizon slowly brighten with dawn. We endure, she whispered back. Days passed. The world began to recover. Communication networks slowly came back online. The global news feeds filled with images of the Leviathan sleeping beneath the sea, a glowing shape that stretched for miles. Some feared it. Others called it a guardian. Scientists began to study the energy traces it left behind, discovering fragments of code unlike anything seen before. Even alien frequencies had gone silent. The Dominion fleet never returned. Their disappearance sent ripples across the galaxy, and word spread that Earth was no longer defenseless. The Deathworlders were awake again, and no one dared to challenge them. Mara was summoned before the United Earth Assembly to give testimony about what happened. She stood before the council, her uniform pressed, her voice steady. She told them everything. The SOS, Elias Ward, the Leviathan's awakening, and the message he left behind. The room was silent when she finished. One of the delegates, an older man with silver hair, leaned forward. So this Leviathan, it's still active? Yes, she said. Dormant but aware. It's not a threat unless provoked. Commander Ward made sure of that. And if it wakes again? Mara looked out the tall glass windows of the chamber, where the sea shimmered faintly in the distance. Then it means the galaxy made another mistake. Outside, humanity began to change. Old divisions faded in the shadow of what had happened. The nations that once distrusted each other now worked together to rebuild. There were no more secret weapons, no more silent defenses hidden beneath the surface. Everything the Deathworlders had once built in fear now became symbols of unity. The story of the wrong SOS became legend, taught in schools, retold in news archives, shared among the stars. Mara visited the Pacific site often. Standing at the water's edge, she would watch the faint shimmer beneath the waves. It looked peaceful, like the world was breathing again. Some nights, when the wind was right and the air was still, she swore she could hear something, like a heartbeat deep below the ocean. She smiled whenever she heard it. One evening, months later, a new transmission reached Earth. It wasn't a cry for help. It was something else. A single data burst from deep space marked with a frequency identical to Elias's old signal. The technicians brought it to Mara immediately. She opened the file expecting static or code. Instead, a familiar voice echoed softly through the room. Mara, if you're hearing this, I guess it worked. I don't know where I am exactly. It's quiet here, big, endless. I can see everything now, the stars, the systems, even the places we were never meant to find. The Leviathan isn't alone. There are others out there, old networks, sleeping like we were. But they're listening now. They know who we are. There was a pause, then a faint laugh. The galaxy wanted to warn us. Instead, we've warned them. Tell them the Deathworlders are watching. Tell them Earth remembers. The recording ended. Mara sat in silence for a long moment, staring at the empty screen. Then she looked out the window toward the sea and whispered, "We'll tell them." As the sun set, the ocean glowed faintly one last time. The Leviathan's pulse shimmered in rhythm with her heartbeat. a reminder that Elias Ward wasn't gone. He had simply become something larger than himself, a voice woven into the living memory of the planet. From that day forward, no distress signal ever reached Earth unanswered. Humanity had changed forever, not through conquest but through understanding what it meant to endure. The galaxy might have called them Deathworlders, but the truth was far simpler. They were survivors, not because they were dangerous, but because they never stopped fighting for the light even when the universe turned dark. And somewhere beyond the stars, a whisper traveled through the void, carrying a message older than war and stronger than fear. Earth is awake. Humanity endures. The Leviathan slept beneath the calm sea, waiting in silence for the day it would rise again.